Hey there, YouTube. Couch Pilot Calvin here, aka Killer Fez, here with some GPS Gym Leader Tournament semifinal action. That's right, we made it to the semifinals. We have a big match here against Sin Dragon Lord, the soon-to-be commissioner of the GPS League, and the one running this tournament. He has just been tearing through the competition with his poison team. It's super bulky, and yeah, it's super bulky. That's that's pretty much it. He has a hard hitter in his Sneasler and Hydreigon, and then of course Glamour can be pretty hard hitting, depending on its build. We are watching this after the fact, but we're gonna go through and do some commentary here. All right, so yeah, sorry about my last match. I was playing the dark team, and I paused the recording for a second, and I thought I hit unpause, and I only got 3 minutes of the match. So yeah, we didn't get any of that match. So, but let's check out this match. Let's mute that so we don't hear that. Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't sound too bad, but we'll see. So here I'm going with a Zoroark lead, and I'm putting Chansey in the back, hoping that he leads Glamora. That's what he normally leads, and we would outspeed and get the Psychic kill. But he leads his Sneasler, and I'm thinking here, Sneasler might go for a close combat here, to try to just take out my Chansey right away. So I was like, yeah, I might as well go for a Psychic and take it out. And unfortunately goes for a U-turn, and that will get rid of our illusion. Let's turn that down, that's pretty loud. Gets rid of our illusion, and we'll be able to bring in his Muck, who is very especially defensive and a dark type, so Psychic doesn't even affect it. Unfortunately, I am choiced into Psychic, so I'm gonna have to switch here. Thinking it would probably go for the dark move, probably knock off. I decided to go into Cyclizar because I know I'll outspeed, and if I can get my Dragonite into this, I can set up pretty well. So that was my plan. But the knockoff does over half, and it gets rid of the Citrus Berry. So I'm not able to shed tail. We're just under half here. And I'm thinking what he's going to try to do, probably running some calcs, because I did have his team build. Since he has everyone's team builds, he gives out his team build to whoever he's facing, so you're on equal footing. And I decided to U-turn, get that regenerator. That way we can come back in later and shed tail again, or shed tail for the first time. And I forget what I do here, honestly. These matches were insane. Yeah, so I do go into the Dragonite, Chubbyzard. He goes with a Drain Punch. We are going to resist that because we're currently flying. And we would have to Terra. But I decide to double switch here. And I think I go into, I do go into Cyclizar. For some reason I thought I wanted to Chansey there. I think I was predicting to go for another knockoff. Oh, and he withdraws. Yeah, that makes sense because I think we threatened a KO with our Earthquake. He goes into his Weezing, who has Levitate and is physically defensive. So, yeah, I think he was expecting an Earthquake there. And now that we're above half, we're able to shed tail. And so I think I want to go into a special attacker here. And we go into, I think we go into Blood Moon, yeah. I believe Blood Moon threatened with a Oko with Blood Moon. And Strange Theme will break the sub. I think it does about 30%. And but I go for the Blood Moon. Even if he comes out with the Muck, Blood Moon's going to do big damage. He goes into Mario, which is the Among Us. And that does huge damage. I did get the crit. And I go for the Earth Power because we outspeed. But unfortunately he withdraws. And he's going to get some health back with his Regenerator. And he goes into Glamora, which unfortunately has an air balloon. So Earth Power is not going to be able to do anything. And I was thinking about going for a Blood Moon here, but I knew the Glamora would outspeed. And it did have Toxic. I really didn't want my Blood Moon Toxic this early. So I go into Chansey. We do have the ability, I forget what it's called. When you switch out, you lose your statuses. So I didn't really mind getting Toxic with Chansey. And I go for the Thunder Wave to paralyze it, just to cripple it a little bit. He does go for the rocks. And we do get the paralysis. Oh, yes, and also in this match, his Glamora does not have Toxic Debris. It has Corrosion. He did that so he could poison other poison types and steel types, which, good tech. He switches into his Among Us here. And we go out to our Cyclizard. And with those rocks, we are just above half. So we're able to Shed Tail here, which I believe is what we do. That way it can't Toxic or Spore us. And we can get in a Mon for pretty free, considering, I mean, Among Us doesn't hit very hard. It's always built defensively. Doesn't have much attack power behind it. And he switches anyways. He's also getting that Regenerator. And he goes into the Cerberus. His Hydreigon. Yeah, we were above half by 2. That's crazy. And I think I go into my Blood Moon here. He'll break the sub easily, but it's got Levitate, and I didn't want a Psychic because he still had the Muck. And just Blood Moon, anything that switches into a Blood Moon just gets hit so hard. Nothing can switch safely into a Blood Moon. I mean, it just dominates. So I go for the Blood Moon here. And he tears, obviously. He's got to tear into his poison typing. Big Surf comes out. Breaks the sub, obviously. Super effective. And we're not that specially defensive. I do believe we would live one, though. And the Blood Moon takes out the Cerberus. And I believe that's the first Mon down. all this time, and we finally get a KO. And then he comes in with the Amoongus here. Unfortunately, I can't Blood Moon. And I couldn't really switch into anything without getting Toxic or Spored. So I go into Chansey once again because, you know, Chansey can get rid of its statuses. And he spores a Chansey. So we immediately switch out. Go into our Cyclizard. He can't put anything else to sleep. I believe there's a sleep clause. I believe so. And he's stopping tantrums. And we live on 1. So we're able to U-turn here. And get a little chip. But I think I decided to go for the Rapid Spin. I think I was predicting him to switch out. But we're going to be able to get rid of the rocks. That way we can switch in a little more freely with all our mons. I forget. I think he switches. Oh, no, he does not switch. And I think he goes for the Giga Drain. Yeah. So Cyclizard unfortunately goes down. But we are able to get rid of the rocks. And I believe I go into Zoroark here. Now that Chansey and Zoroark both have damage, it's a little easier to bring in Zoroark and them not being able to tell what it is. I do go for the Flamethrower here. I think it does the same amount as Psychic. And in case he switches in the Muck, it'll still do damage instead of just not being very effective. And he stays in, and the Flamethrower picks up the KO. So that's an annoyance right there that's taken care of. And we're up 2 KOs to 1. And then the Muck comes in. Knowing it's the Zoroark at this point, I go into the actual Chansey, I believe, here. And he knocks off, gets rid of my Eviolite, and he poisons me with his Poison Touch. And at this point, I go for the Paralysis to try to cripple it a little bit because it's just so bulky and it stays around. Unfortunately, in comes the Glamora, which is already paralyzed. So Thunder Wave will not work. So I decided to Soft Boil here as a Stealth Rocks. I knew he was going to Stealth Rock regardless, so I figured I'd just get some health back on the Chansey. And being Poison Touch poisoned us, so it's just a regular poison. It wasn't going to stack like a Toxic would. Glamora goes for the Power Gem. We live it. And we're able to go for the Seismic Toss. Doing some decent damage, but most importantly, gets rid of that Air Balloon. I think I go for another soft boil here. Yeah. It's what Chansey does. Soft boil, seismic toss, paralysis. You know, Chansey's really been carrying me this season. It absolutely came in clutch against that dark team last week. And the power gem, we're going to live. Get another soft boil up. Now we're over half. Barely, but we're over half. I know, actually, we're under half. But it's... forget what I do here, honestly. Yeah, I go into the Zoroark. Kind of at stalemate at that time. And I didn't know this, I found this out, but if you swap from your last Mon to your Illusion Mon, it just comes out as the Zoroark. Zoroark goes down because it's a wet paper bag, and it will die if you sneeze on it. And I go into Uncle Ruckus. I was thinking maybe because it's paralyzed, we might outspeed. Go for the Blood Moon. I was wrong. Still outspeeds us. We haven't gotten a single paralysis proc. And we go for the Blood Moon. Doesn't take him out. I was kind of expecting him to swap into the Wheezing there. So I didn't go for the Earth Power. Take a little poison damage. And I think I was looking to see how much damage Vacuum Wave would do here. We do end up going with it. I think it was a roll. But I wanted to outspeed, do some more damage to it. And he goes into the Dimmadome, knowing we couldn't go for a Blood Moon there. Very smart move. And with his leftovers, he goes back up to full. 4 times resisting the Vacuum Wave, so. And that Toxic is starting to build up a little bit, even with our leftovers. But at this point, I can go for the Blood Moon. I knew I would live a Strange Steam, but he withdraws, which is really smart. Goes back into the Glamora, letting it go down. And thinking he would go into the Muck here, his physical wall, and he does, special wall. And I need to get my Blood Moon out at this point because those Toxics are really building up. Got 3 minutes left of this battle. Chansey comes in, gets knocked off, lives on 4, gets poisoned. This is a speed tie between these two. And I believe I go for the Thunder Wave again. Or do I go for the Soft Boil? I go for the Soft Boil. We outspeed. We win the speed tie there. And it brings us up so we could live another knockoff. But unfortunately, it goes for the Drain Punch. Going back up to full. And I think, yeah, this is where I decided for the Thunder Wave. He withdraws, and we get the Thunder Wave off on the Sneasler, which is big because now our Ditto outspeed. They're both scarfed. So Chansey goes down. Bring out the Blood Moon, knowing it would live one close combat, and he gets the paralysis, so we didn't even need the we didn't even need to live the close combat, which is huge. It keeps him healthy. Now we have Muck and Wheezing to take out, a physical and a special wall. We do have our Ursaluna and we have our Dragonite left, but we only have 50 seconds of this battle. And I'm running low on Blood Moons. I only have 3 left. So I go into Ditto here because I didn't want my Dragonite to come in and take any damage. Transform into the Muck. Get Drain Punched. And at this point, I was thinking about going for the Gunk Shot because I believe it did more damage. We just went for the Drain Punch. And that would end the battle. And we couldn't really agree on who would win because there... I mean, there was a possibility for both of us to win that. If you got burn off on my Dragonite with Wheezing, I mean, it would completely wall my my Dragonite, and then also with Ursaluna getting completely walled by Muck. We couldn't really agree who would win, so we decided we were gonna, if need be, we would send it to the Rule Commission, or yeah. Sorry, can't think of what it's called. The Rule Committee, not Commission. That's what we were talking about right here, so we skip forward a little bit. So we were like, oh, let's move on, and we'll deal with that if we gotta deal with it. So started game 2. Decided to lead Chansey this time. I was debating on whether to do Zoroark again, but I figured I'd lead Chansey. I knew even if he would close combat with the Sneasler, we would live 1, unless we got critted, of course. And then I bring the Ursaluna in the back. That way, when Zoroark came in, it would take the form of Ursaluna, which is what I normally do. So he leads with Sneasler again. I lead with Chansey. I think at this point he wasn't entirely sure what it was going to be, so I was going for the Thunder Wave here. If he got the close combat off, I was just going to paralyze it. If he U-turned, I would just paralyze whatever comes in. So he gets the U-turn off. He can see that's the Chansey because there was no illusion. And goes into the Glamora. So we are going to get the paralysis off on the Glamora. And then we go for Seismic Toss. Get rid of that balloon early this game. That way it can't switch in to an Earthquake. And we get our first paralysis of the match. Get the Seismic Toss off. Doing some decent damage. Getting rid of that air balloon. And I figured, you know what? We didn't take any damage here. Might as well go for another Seismic Toss. I believe it's a 4-hit KO. And he goes for the Stealth Rock. Get another Seismic Toss off. And you know what? Chansey hasn't taken any more damage. Let's go for another Seismic Toss. Hits everyone on his team. No ghost types. And we get another paralysis. Huge. Granted, I mean, he could have Toxic or he could have Power Gemmed. It's not going to do much. Still have our Eviolite, and we're Chansey. So, we take out the Glamora with the Chansey. Did get rocks off. But that's just one annoyance we don't have to deal with later. Now, he brings in the Sneasler. And I think at this point I was like, gonna let Chansey go down. But I was like, he might be going for U-turn again, trying to get some momentum. And I really didn't. If he was close combating, I didn't want anything to switch into it. I mean, I could have went into the Zoroark. Oh, in fact, I do go into the Zoroark. Sorry, I don't know what I was thinking there. So I go into the Zoroark, predicting the close combat, and he U-turns. That'll take our illusion away. He was playing really smartly around the Zoroark. Just always knowing it's a possibility. And I immediately have to switch out here. Go into the Cyclizard knowing a knockoff was coming. So he knocks us off. But I decided to go for the Rapid Spin instead of the U-turn. I wanted to get rid of those rocks. Now that you can't set them back up. Goes for another knockoff. We live because we don't have an item. And now we're able to go for a U-turn. Get back some of that health. Really think about what to do. I think here, personally, if I was in his shoes, I'd probably just click knockoff again. But he withdraws. Comes in with the Mario. Get the U-turn off. Get some decent chunk. Now we know we're going to outspeed with whatever we bring in. And I believe I bring in Zoroark? Or do I bring in the Ursaluna? I think I bring in the Zoroark. Yeah, bring in the Zoroark. You can see that it is the Zoroark because it has damage to it. Go for the Flamethrower. Does the same amount as Psychic, but also if he goes into the muck here, does damage and has the possibility to burn. And that's what I was really hoping for. Get some burn off, get some chips, and it would weaken it. Go for the Flamethrower. does barely nothing, and unfortunately don't get the burn. I switch. Go into the Chansey because I don't want my Cyclizard coming in, taking another knockoff. Gets rid of our Eviolite, but even without the Eviolite, we're pretty bulky, so that's fine. Get the Thunder Wave off. Finally get to paralyze this thing. And immediately get a paralysis. So now we guarantee outspeed with Chansey. And Chansey's got honestly a decent matchup against this thing. Go for the Seismic Toss, does a chunk. Goes for the Gunk Shot, and we barely live it. But unfortunately, we get poisoned. And I believe the poison takes us out. Yeah. Go into the Charizard here, I believe. Not Charizard. Sorry. Chubbyzard. The Dragonite. Go in the Dragonite here. Have to Terra. And I go for... I'm thinking he's thinking we're probably going for Earthquake. Going for the kill. So we actually go for the Extreme Speed. To hit the Wheezing. Which is what comes in. Does a good chunk. About a third. He will get the leftovers recoveries. And we switch out. And I don't... Yeah, we go into the Zoroark here. No. Go into the Ursaluna. Just did this match yesterday. I can't remember what I did. So we go into the Ursaluna. Take a Strange Steam. It does 75 damage. He gets the recovery. We get a little recovery. And he does outspeed. We don't get confused. And we go for the Blood Moon here. I think, yeah, I was contemplating going for Calm Mind if he was going to switch out. He does switch out, goes into the Amoonguss. Get a Blood Moon off, does half. Without that crit, you know, it lives a lot better. And we don't have the Chansey to take the Toxic or the Spore. So I actually decided to go into Ditto here. That way he can't Toxic or Spore us. And I learned something else. So because of Imposter, we obviously turn into the Amoonguss. And we gain the ability Regenerator. And now when we swap out with Ditto as Amoonguss, we automatically gain the health. I didn't think it was going to work that way. But as it switches out, it regains the health. And yeah, that was actually a really cool thing to learn. So we go for the Giga Drain. And he's Stomping Tantrums us because it's double effective at this point. Or it hits for double as hard because the Spore failed. Goes for the another Spore. That way he can go for another Stomping Tantrum. And we decide to go into the Roaring Moon. Or not Roaring Moon. Blood Moon, Ursaluna. To take this Stomping Tantrum. and eat it pretty well. Gain some health back from the leftovers. Now we threaten a KO with the Blood Moon. And he stays in. We get the Blood Moon off. Take out the Amoonguss. Get some more leftover recovery. Sends out the Hydreigon. And at this point, I don't think I realized how the regenerator worked with my Ditto. But I was predicting a Surf here. So I go into the Ditto. That way we can resist it after we turn into the Dragon typing. He forgets the Terra there. Doesn't make a difference, but he does go for the Dark Pulse instead of the Surf. And I go for the Dark Pulse here, hoping he's going to Terra again. That way it's, we're getting Stab and it's neutral at this point because he's Poison type. And we're outspeeding, so we do have the possibility for a flinch. Does a really good chunk. A little over a third. Not quite half though, so it is a 3-hit KO. But that Terra Blast absolutely destroys us. I do decide to stay in. Go for another Dark Pulse, but he switches out into the Muck. Which makes sense. It's going to resist. It's very specially defensive. And I was like, oh, he's only at 5 health. I know he's paralyzed. And we have a chance to flinch. Might as well, pray to RNG Jesus. And we get the paralysis. So I was like, hey, why not? Go for one more. We can para. We can flinch. Do we get it again? Unfortunately, we don't. That's alright. Ditto put in a lot of work this game. And I go into I believe I go into Zoroark here. No. That's right. I go into the Cyclizard. Figured out speed. I think I threaten a KO with the U-turn. And then I can get some Regenerator. Get him above half. That way we can Shed Tail possibly later. It withdraws the Muck. Sends out the Sneasler. Pretty big threat to the team. And I go into the Charizard. The name's really confusing me. Go into the Dragonite. No one will live in it. Whatever he hits us with. And we can Extreme Speed, Wild Speed. Unfortunately, we don't pick up the KO. We knew we wouldn't. He used turns and he breaks our multi-scale. But at that point, it's in with range of the Extreme Speed and the Vacuum Wave. So I wasn't too worried about that Mon at that point. Brings in the Weezing. We send in the Ursaluna. Gets the Will-O-Wisp off. That's alright with me. Leftovers will cancel that out. And we're a special attacker. Now we threaten anything that comes in with the Blood Moon. And I believe no, I don't predict it. Should have predicted the switch and just gone for an Earth Power. Because he only had that one leftover Mon left. But we go for the Blood Moon here. Take out that Muck finally. Huge thorn in our side this entire match. Get the leftover recovery. But we also get burnt. And equals each other out. Goes into the Hydreigon. I think I forgot he had this left, if I'm totally honest. And I decided to go into the Cyclizard. Thinking it might live a Surf, if he goes for Surf, because we resist. Goes for the Dark Pulse. We still live it. We outspeed. And instead of going for the U-turn, I go for the knockoff. That way we can do some damage. Get rid of the Expert Belt. Really doesn't come into play too much here. But it's good damage. And I go into the Zoroark here. Knowing that he no longer has a Dark type. And it's pretty free just to click Psychic. You can tell it's not the Ursaluna at this point because it's not burnt. But we outspeed everything but the Sneasler. And for some reason I was thinking Dire Claw was a Dark type move. So I was still really worried about it. Realizing it's a poison move, we resist it. We actually live it. But it also has that chance to put us to sleep. So he sends out the Sneasler. This is when I'm like looking at the calcs and I was like, oh, it's a poison move. It can't kill us. So we go for the Psychic. We get poisoned instead of the Dire Claw. We get poisoned from the Poison Touch instead of the Dire Claw poisoning us, putting us to sleep, or critting us. Get the Psychic off, take out the Sneasler. All he has left is a Weezing. And we live the poison on 5. The Dimmadome. Go for the Psychic. And the Dimmadome, it goes down. So that goes game 2 to us. And we were going to send game 1 to the rule committee, but we decided, oh, let's just go game 3. That way it's done and over with. If I win, game 1 doesn't matter. And if he wins, then we'd send game 1 to the rule committee for them to decide who would win. And I was like, yeah, let's, we're set up. We're already connected. We might as well. No point of coming back later and trying to figure out another time to play. So game 3 it is. And this game, I decided to lead Chansey again. Worked pretty well for me last game. I was like, might as well, go for it again. I think, honestly, if he would have went Toxic Debris with the Glamora, I think it's a different game. Getting poisoned on almost my entire team and just wearing them down with how defensive his team is. I think Toxic Debris would have probably been a better move. He could have just, wore everyone down. And so go with the Chansey. I go for the Thunder Wave again, thinking, he might close combat, he might U-turn. Goes for the U-turn again. Sends out the Glamora. And we're able to get the Thunder Wave off on the Glamora. And just go for the Seismic Toss here. Gets the Toxic this time, though. So get rid of the Air Balloon. Do a decent chunk. And then I was thinking about switching here. I do. I didn't want the Toxic to build up. And he gets a Stealth Rock up. And I go for the Psychic, hoping he wouldn't switch out to the Muck, and he doesn't. I think he was going for the Toxic on the Ursaluna, which worked out in my favor. It's always a good time when the Zoroark illusion pays off, I go into the Chansey here to take the knockoff. Take it pretty well. Go for the Stealth Rocks. I was thinking, you know what? I haven't gotten rocks up the first two games. There's a lot of switching. I figured this rocks would really help. And he has no way to remove them now that the Glamora is gone. Go for the Soft Boil, but we lose a speed tie. And I go into the Cyclizard. And at this point, I finally got the Cyclizard in healthy. So I'm able to Rapid Spin. I think he was going to predict a Shed Tail here. And we get rid of the rocks. He goes goes to the knockoff. Gets rid of the Citrus Berry. We're able to U-turn. Looking back at it, I probably should have knocked this thing off. Get rid of the Assault Vest. That way when it was switching into the Blood Moon and the Flamethrowers and everything, we were able to actually, damage it a little bit more. After it looked like in the calcs after the knockoff or the U-turn and the Rapid Spin, I think it was within range of an Earth Power. Or maybe I was just hoping, we could do some damage. Again, I think if I would have knocked it off, we would have been able to do. We might have been able to pick up the KO. But I go for another Earth Power. I get rid of that frickin' muck. Finally. Goes into the Moongus here. And again, we don't have the Chansey. So we go into the Ditto. He goes for the Giga Drain. And I go for the Toxic here. Thinking, oh, he might switch out. And not even thinking, oh, wait, his whole team's poison. I can't Toxic any of them. So he goes for the Spore. And he does that to power up the Stomping Tantrum. So I go into the Dragonite here. And I mainly do this because I know Dragonite can't OHKO this thing. But I do that solely so I can switch up my move selection. Because, yeah, I didn't want to be locked in on Toxic, which can't affect any of his team. I mean, I guess if he would have switched in the Hydreigon, I would have Toxic the Hydreigon, but yeah. So I think at this point is when I finally realized that the Regenerator worked the way it does, because I was at full health. And I go for the Stomping Tantrum here. You know, realizing it's going to do a lot more than the Giga Drain does. His does half. Mine does less than a quarter. He goes for the Spore here. And I wanted to switch out to Dragonite, but I didn't want him to predict the switch. So I'd go for another Stomping Tantrum. And that's what he was exactly what he was doing. He thought I was going to go out to the Dragonite, so he Spored. And now I decide to switch. And I believe I switched to the Cyclizard. Because I was like, you know, if the Cyclizard goes to sleep and goes down, it is what it is. And I was like, oh, the Cyclizard can take a Stomping Tantrum. And it does, but it doesn't take it well. And then I U-turn. And he switches. So I U-turn to get the Regenerator. He goes in the Dimsdale Dimmadome. I get the crit. Still does absolutely 2. And then I go into the Zoroark. He doesn't have a Psychic type other than Hydreigon, which has Cetera. So I knew Psychic was going to do big damage. Coming in as the Ditto is hilarious, though. Yeah, I have no clue why I came in as the Ditto. Because I believe I still put Ursaluna at the very back of my party. But he withdraws the Dimmadome, knowing it's the Zoroark. Goes into the Hydreigon. Now, it was a roll for the Psychic to KO even after it was Terastallized, but with the rocks, I think it was like some 80% chance it was going to OHKO. So I figured I'll just go for it. Get the Psychic off. Take out the Hydreigon. We get the roll. At this point, Psychic guarantee OHKOs everything except for the Amoonguss. I think it does like 67% to the Amoonguss. Something like that. Goes into the Sneasler. We know we can live a Dire Claw, but again, it has the chance to crit, and it has the chance to put us to sleep. Fortunately, Poison Touch activates. We get poisoned. You can finally realize it wasn't a Ditto shooting off Psychics. It was actually a Zoroark. And we pick up the KO on the Sneasler. Take a little poison damage. At this point, he has Amoonguss and Weezing left. Go for the Psychic. That way nothing switched and got put to sleep. He goes for the Giga Drain, picks up the KO. Gets a little health back. And I bring in the Ursaluna here. And I was thinking, oh, I'll just Earth Power here. I was like, no, let's go for the Blood Moon. That can guarantee the KO. We knew we were going to outspeed. I think at this point he was contemplating if I was going to go for Earth Power or not. But we get the Blood Moon off. And here is where I mess up. Alright. Sends out the Weezing. It gets a little rocks damage on it. I can't Blood Moon. Earth Power is not going to hit it. And Vacuum Wave does 0. So I was like, oh, come on. Right? I can live 2 Strange Teams. Takes us down to 35. Right? And I was like, whoa, dang. Maybe with the Calm Mind we'll live, but it outspeeds us, so it doesn't matter if we switch out at this point. If I would have switched out and let anything go down and then swap back in the Blood Moon, I could have just freely Blood Moon. But the Strange Steam hits, takes us out, and that's like our best. We have no more special attackers. I was like, oh crap. Like I was like, I'm in trouble. I have a dragon left. I have a Dragonite, but it's a normal type Dragonite. So I'm thinking, oh man, what can I do? I was like, alright, let's get rid of these leftovers. Knock off the leftovers. Does no damage, but now he doesn't get any recovery. Right? Strange Stream takes us out. And I'm thinking, oh man, am I about to lose this game? Like, I was up 4 Mons to 1 with a Weezing left, and I'm gonna get reverse swept by a Weezing. Send in the Ditto, and I'm like, should I Will-O-Wisp it, get some damage? And I was like, you know what? No, I'll just Flamethrower, and that's the biggest damage I can do. I was like, oh, maybe I should went for Strange Steam, get a Confusion off possibly. We get the Flamethrower off. It actually does pretty good damage. Being a physically defensive Mon, he gets the crit. Which, I think without that crit, I think my Ditto could have just won the game. Go for another Flamethrower. He goes for another Flamethrower. We live. Get burnt. Get the burn chip. But we're able to go for another flamethrower. And with that flamethrower, easily he's in range to our Dragonite's extreme speed. So despite my mistake, we didn't throw the match. Bring in the Dragonite. I'm so excited at this point. I'm just clicking. I'll make sure I don't click Dragon Dance. That would have been bad. But I forget the Terra. Doesn't matter. Still get the KO. And we are in the finals. So we gotta wait. The losers bracket's gotta play out. We play the winner of the losers bracket. We could play Sin Dragon Lord again. We could play the Dark team again. We could play the Dragon team again. The only team we face that's still in it is not in it anymore is the ground team. I believe Flying is in it. Fighting is in it, which would probably be the worst case scenario if they made it to the finals. And Ghost is still in it, which would be an interesting match to see. But yeah, so we're in the finals. It might be a while till we play that finals match, but like and subscribe. That way you can see when that one comes out. And let me know in the comments, who do you think would have won game one if the timer wasn't a factor? Like I said, there's a possibility we both could come out with the win, but let me know who you think would win. But see you guys next time. Peace.